Good afternoon. Again, coming to you a bit later than normal. Been a busy aftermarket as we waited for Apple to deliver their earnings. Yesterday we were late with Tesla, so it's been a busy couple of days. Welcome to Traders Communities Podcast with Meta Johnny and Madavi in the house. Pretty much as far as financial markets, a redux of yesterday. We had that big swan overnight swan dive, and we rallied through the night. Lots of panic, but pretty much it was a redux of yesterday. Another bear market rally went right into the slot to give another beautiful selling opportunity. The news, of course, was Tesla got pounded about 10% today. And after the market, of course, it was Apple. As far as commodity markets, oil and natural gas were well bid again. Natgas, so oil got up to another 7-year high, over 88.5 on WTI, and higher than that on Brent. As far as Natgas goes, all the news was on the February contract that went out today. So there's a good article on that on Traders Community we'll talk about later, where they got caught the molecules. Remember most activities in the March contract, which also was strong. We've had that big reverse, the biggest reverse this winter in weather models yesterday, catching a few of the punters and dribblers short. And volatility, with another big day there, and as you would expect, with the move on the market. So we'll start off, we'll just talk quickly about the Russell before we get into the charts. The Russell now is over 20% from their all-time high. And a lot of those stocks, fellas, has been the bastion of the punters and dribblers, haven't it? They just bought everything all year, buy the dip, and you're a dick if you don't buy the pullback, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the pain. The other one, as we kind of morph into Hood's earnings, Hood went under $10 today after earnings, and that's the stock, of course, that was a bastion of that kind of meme trading and all that. So kind of a sad day, reflection of what happened, of the money lost, because it's probably a similar percentage to a lot of people that were in that and promoted by FinTwit, etc., which are now called, as we mentioned, all experts on the downside now. So remember, trade, have your strategy, let it play out. Anyway, so let's start with the S&P. You can see that the S&P is closed 23 handles lower after being up 79 handles. The Dow was up 605 handles, closed down basically flat, down 7. The S&P was a big one. That was up a couple of hundred and closed down a couple of hundred, minus 189. I guess that's a good effort compared to yesterday's volatility. The bonds were a lot to do with all this today. The yields, we'll talk about that through the day, through our little podcast chat. So what should we start with, boys? The S&P?
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good. So the S&P was, so remember we made a good point yesterday on learning from your previous trades. And no matter how good you think you are experienced, you should always have the mindset that you're going to learn something every day in trading. And yesterday we opined, and we'll start off with the daily that we sold on the S&P here yesterday, off the daily tanking, and it was almost at the same level that Madavi did he's more a Nasdaq trader, as you know. So I made the point yesterday, I got out of this too early because I was looking too short term and I neglected to have my overriding rule. Well, today we had that same move. We opened up almost quite there. And you'll see also the 200, which is this yellow, which is you'll see a lot of people talking about. And a friend of ours, Adam Kabesi there, he's been pretty well talking about this very well how important that is. And again, that almost got there too. So anyway, we got that short on, and pretty well to maintain it, did a lot less size, so you're more comfortable with it. And just to be honest, moved away from trading too short term today. And Madavi did much the same. So we basically put your position on, you stop, and you looked at it based on that. Sometimes that's better. Depends if you're a pure scalper, then perhaps you don't like that. But remember, this whole game is mental. So from an hourly point of view, you can see what happened, right? When retested that breakdown level. On the Murray level, nothing really changed. So you're still in that same grid. And if we're going to go 5 minutes, you can see just how overbought that was, right? So they got to minus 2.8 and got all the way up here without recalcing. So that was our obvious sell here. You had that previous high. Remember that my favourites when it comes back under that other high, right? And then it did this one too. Now, yesterday we got out of this, right? Same pattern. Remember that? I stuffed that up, right? So today, we did our best to stay in that exactly same pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's either ABC or 1, 2. We can see it traded up after Apple. Okay, moving it on to, I guess look at the weekly real quickly. You can see where it closed at right at that 50 weekly moving average that we watch. It went under it again, but it's closing over it. So this is a big week, and you can see the kiss of death there, right? On the weekly, we went through that on the daily. Okay, let's have a look at the Nasdaq, mate. Let me bring the chart up for you first. So here we are. Which one? Do you want to start off short-term or long-term chart? David?
What's that?
On the Nasdaq, do you want to start off talking about the long-term or the short-term?
Either one. You get started and I'll take over.
Okay. So on a daily basis, much the same as the SPOOs that we just went through. We had this big sell-off swoon overnight, and then we've come up yesterday. It was almost to the Tenkan. Very different to the SPOOs, though. You see how it didn't quite get up there, and then it just sold off and finished midstream. So that's an inconclusive move for the candlestick people out there. If we go to the 240, we'll be able to see that even more clearly, what it did today. It's basically in this big continuation pattern. And here we are. Here's your 5 minute one, if you want to take us through that, mate. So we had that same move up as S&P, and it just sold off after that.
Well, I mean, like we've been talking about this whole week, this is kind of the opposite of what it was the last 10 years or whatever. Let's say the last 3-4 years.
Seems like about
the market gets up. So these are people who think today's got to be it. We've been down 3 or 4 days, and it's going to go. This thing's got great earnings, and for it just to sell off. And what is that doing? Like I've been saying, it's eroding all these small traders who's been making money's cash flow, which is probably going to eat up all their cash, and they're going to be back to where they started before this. And so that's why I like to stay on the short side of things, understand my environment, and the things are really moving. There's great opportunity out there. Take advantage of it. Anything does happen to this market, that could go all the way. So make the money while you can, and you see opportunities, take well advantage of it right now. And there's great setups out there that you guys are going to start seeing it as you follow us.
Right, and actually it's a good point. Take your money. I mean, I do it religiously, and we both. So you can have two. So, okay, if you follow, it's worth your while to understand turtle trading. Look back at those guys. They were legends in the commodity days, long before us. But they're kind of legends. They're called the turtle traders out of Chicago, big futures traders. So what they would do is pyramid up to try to maximize their gains, and then you have the pyramiding. So if you follow Ed, so read up on Ed Secoda too. So when it starts getting bad, you're smaller and smaller your position. So there's two ways to take advantage of good upswings and downswings when you're doing well. But the key that I would add to all that is take out your profits, use them, bank them, buy something real with it, pay off your debt, whatever. What I've seen too much is people just get greedier and greedier and they get big. And I just saw, people went mad on particularly on, not from the pro trading world. Well, really, pro just means you earn a living from trading, right? Professional, obviously, have the background. So take whatever you will with that comment. But a lot of the people that knew it and particularly made all money in the last 2 years, you couldn't tell them anything. And a lot of them have all failed and gone on to other things or whatever. But the one thing was they would never take money off the table because they just thought it was ongoing, right? And if they did, it was kind of what we say, the expression piss against the wall, right? So there's that adage as well. You want to be very aware of. Here we got his Nasdaq. Here futures back open. We're back at 5 o'clock. So we've opened above, as you'd expect with Apple. But yeah, so how I was able to do that was just by doing and not looking at all the time. You just give yourself a break. We were up late last night with those crazy moves. So as Madavi said, you take advantage of those when they happen, right?
You might never see these moves again. And, when the market starts selling off and these guys with these traders start burning out, it does eventually affect the market. Let's hope there's enough new people that's come in. That'll never happen. But this is a new environment. They always say that, but it always, one thing is when people start losing money and their techniques don't work, buy and hold or buy dips, they get discouraged or they run out of cash.
Right. And so I see a lot of misinformation out there too. So if your technical analysis skills are good and your trading skills, you do buy those spike downs if they're at your level and you'll make that money on today. So don't just stand out and stay away. And if you're a trader, if you're not a trader, it's a different thing. But you will learn more in the coalface. It's all psychology and you got to learn yourself, In Australia, there's an old expression, harden the F up, and it's probably not a good thing in many ways. But the expression's meant to mean not just be, what do they call it, toxic masculinity. It's not meant to mean that at all. It's meant to mean learn from it and just sometimes you just got to, man or woman up about the situation. And so that's exactly you will learn more in this market, don't you think, Madavi, than any other market? Because it's brutal.
Absolutely.
So be wary of what people say, Just because a non-trader says that doesn't mean it's right? So you respect your risk, but you learn it. And it doesn't mean we're not saying punt, far from it. We're saying the complete opposite, right? So that's why we use these technical grids like Murray and Itchy that we talk about, and then watch order flow. And we watch the sentiment. And you'll see, we'll go through some trades we did later when we get to Apple. And it's all trying to read the settlement. And remember, you're never going to be perfect. So you work around what suits you best. Is it manual stops? Is it hard stops? Is it smaller levels? Is it optionality? There's all these different things because we're all a little bit different, right?
Now, here's an example. The futures just opened up. We gap way up. So what do?
So we're watching Nasdaq futures, right?
Yeah. So most of the time, if you got my book, Trading Stocks for Dummies, page number 1.
I got the Braille version, but
you guys, anybody want my books for Trading for Dummies? Let me know. We could maybe work something out.
Is that in the real world or the metaverse?
Yeah. When something's way up there, you don't buy it because there's a chance that people are going to start taking profits.
Right, particularly in this environment, a bear market, right? And so there's another reason for that is if it's made the market makers short, this is why gap ups and gap downs work. If it's made the market maker long or short, they want to get their position back and that they can control it better than most. Now, you do get runaway gaps, But as a general rule, that's what you do. And you don't have to buy it either. You can sit and watch. But generally, that's why you short the spike and buy the spike, right? With control and with thought. And you've seen it as it opened. It's already come back 40 handles, right? 30 handles here.
Yep.
We're sitting here watching.
Killing it.
So, and this is cash you're watching here marketed to it. So, and you just got to be quick in and out. You take what you can in these markets. So that's why order flow is really important, to see where they come in and don't. And so techniques like market profile are really, really useful too, right? Big fan of that, and I use a lot of that today. And I know there's some really good traders out there that use that, that are out there and about. So it depends what you're doing. Are you a strategic trader? I.e., and that doesn't mean just having a punt, my views, this micro or macro. It means you're looking more like we do. We have a mix of longer term trades and short daytime trades. But we're always, whenever we put a bloody trade on, we trade from defense, right? And if you're an NFL fan, what won some of the best NFL games I've ever seen probably this weekend, right, Madavi?
Yeah.
You're really close from deep defense, right? And, you know, my background came from like rugby league, and that's all about defense, right? And so NFL is all about that too, and at college is more about attack, blah, blah, blah. You know, we won't get into it, but you compare it to trading is the point here, you know? So you put on a trade. If it starts working, then it can grow or morph, whatever the word is, into a longer term trade. I have never been a believer of this. Oh, I know more about bloody technology and drugs or whatever it is. Well, I'll get news to you. There's analyst teams out there that probably have a better idea. Big money teams, right? And so what happens to those people?
And there's insider information.
Yeah, so let it work. So you let your trade work, and then you watch how the people... This is why we like the Elliott Wave bit, is you let it work, right? Now, if you're just a pure day trader, you just want a mechanical system that works. So Murray Math, Fibonacci, POCs, etc., right? Whatever works for you. But you see a lot of them, what the algos are doing, that's what they're doing, right? It's all algo. But anyway, and you'll see it. We just, as we just said. But here's this as we're seeing as it opens. So let's have a look at the Russell. That is, we've said that's the run of the litter for a while. And really, one of the reasons we were bearish back in November for a bigger move down was because Russell, and if you follow us, you would have, you know, we do those weekly. We don't just make this crap up and delete it. We've always focused on the Russell never breaking up, right? And we mentioned that. And today it actually closed over 20% from its high, right? So this is now 20%. This looks like a total dog. And remember, we really increased our bearish stuff when... which chart is it on? Which is our main one? I believe it's this one. No. Sorry, people. Long day. Here we go. So here was our thing. And once this critical support, we bought off this thing all year, mainly IWM, trading it off that. Once this purple line went, and it gave you, was it last Monday? It came in and retested it. And so, but that's critical. But the point we really get to, this thing never got up to the spoos or Dow hitting new highs. And it couldn't get over this Tenkan or Cajun. And then it just fell hard from here, right? So it's just textbook stuff. And if you know your crowds, you know what that's doing or meant to represent, you know. So you put all that together. But that was... So that one tried to bounce the most, didn't it, up until yesterday, and it was all over. Then it got back into the downtrend. So remember, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Pretty simple, really. Simple rules.
I mean, today was, it was not a very active day. It was just basically fade to open. I should have just did that, and that could have been the only trade I'd done all day. I probably done better than I did trading it more often.
Yeah, I just got a message here. Did someone get locked out or something? Yeah, so we continued. Yeah, so someone on YouTube got. I just got a chat. Yeah, just log back in. If you're having a problem, you should be able to just log back in. Yeah, so hood is a great way how... Let me put up... You know what? Let's look at our other charts and let's put a hood on them. Let me find them. This one here. So we can go through hood. And this one... Sorry, Madad, if you could go on. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just reading
nothing.
A comment someone left on our...
Yeah. We'll just...
Yeah, I got probably... Let me
just talking about today, how it was just a straight down day. It was not as volatile as it's been the last couple of days, but it was just a straight sell, and you would have done...
Yeah, and that's all we really... I mean, that's all I did, right?
And, probably hurt myself doing it. But it was a great day.
Here you go.
I'm happy with it.
Okay, here's your hood right here. So hood, as we've said, this is live right now, and then we'll go look at it longer term. So if you want to walk us through, because you did a really nice trade on that. I didn't trade this after the earnings. Earnings was another disaster.
I mean, with hood, it's got to beat down to hell. So when the earnings came out, I shorted it around 1070, and it got a good position on, and then I started exiting out about 1020 all the way down to $10. And I started getting long. Actually, I exited out at about 10:25, and I started getting long at 10:25. Then I got some at 10:30. Then it went all the way back down to below $10. I bought some more there. So
yeah, so then he tends to. You can see what I liked about his trade here was see this positive divergence. So we went lower here and less volume. So once that started going green, that's when he started adding. It started working for you. So yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not a fan of hood because of that whole thing with the meme where they did that deal and shut the markets down for a night. Remember, a day or whatever, and we had some. Cost us all money. Just and unrelated, right? But you're able to make money elsewhere. But it was interesting. I just thought that was really against every moral aspect that they stood for. But, and Checkmate made a good point. Those guys who IPO'd that did that at the perfect time, didn't they? Right, $44 or something? And then they sold out... Well, remember that day it went over $80? All those people sold out on it?
Yeah, they made it available to Robinhood subscribers, people on their platform. So they actually were able to buy it, I think.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. So there was a day after. Remember Madavi, we traded it like 2 days after. It went from like 40 to 85. And
which one? The hood?
Yeah, the hood. Remember that? And then the guys that lent them all the money to survive with shares or something. I'm kind of remembering. So don't quote me on all this. I'm not going to be perfect, but they either lent them money or they got shares. However, whatever they did, they announced they were selling a truckload of it. Like it was $80. So it was $80. I remember we sold it, and then the next day it was like way back down again. It's never looked up. So the point being, a lot of those people that got in with size got out of it way up the top, and here it is at $10. So it kind of represents the stock itself, the bag holders of all these stocks. Well,
what I was trying to let you know is that because I bought some on Robinhood just to try it out.
Oh, yeah, you bought it actually on the IPO.
And part of it is when they get those IPO, they have every month you get a couple of IPOs you wouldn't get unless you were a member of their platform. But what happened was signed up for it, and then you're supposed to hold the stock for 30 days. So you probably had a lot of people that were retail guys that tried to keep in their good IPO status, because if you sell out of it before the 30 days, then you're restricted for 60 days from having access to an IPO. And
that wouldn't have stopped me at $80.
Well,
not that I
plays
had
into
it,
it, yeah, but just plays into it. You know, people believe that, hey, Robinhood, they've never traded on anything else, and then they have this rule that they're supposed to not, sell it right away.
Right.
And I could just see, some of those people probably had a bad experience because they got locked in and they sold it.
Well, that's the same in most IPOs, right? Some of them you got to hold, some you don't. I mean, to be fair, but the way, as I recall, we traded that was we actually got long under that IPO price, and because we recognised the herd coming in, it became a bit of a meme stock, and then we just got really lucky that it went up to $80, and it got. Because back then, a lot of those trades we were doing, if you remember, they were those gap up ones. So we were well aware of the lockup. So we kind of got lucky on that one. But the point being is not to brag about that, but is the next day they announced, hey, we're selling this thing, right? Remember that? It wasn't I don't remember it as a secondary. I remember them made some announcement, those people that... And so the story, basically they needed money after that whole shutdown, the Citadel thing, all that sort of stuff. So these people gave them money, and they gave them shares, is how I remember it. I mean... But what I do know is just what the stock did. Anyway, here we are. I mean, we can look at it at a weekly. I mean, it'll tell us. I think I got too many things running right now, but we got like 50 million platforms running on this. So if we go to the weekly, we'll see what we're all talking about. Some red in this little bit bugger, huh? It doesn't want to go up. I may have to shut down a few things, but let's see. There we go. So this is that day that I'm talking about. Remember this? So it opened up and it went under its IPO price, and then it did this crazy move over 80. I mean, it went higher. 80 is just kind of where we did our stuff. But look at that, just straight down. So you're right. So Johnny, if it's 30 days, so this is, what is this? Daily. So they couldn't, if they abided by that rule, they couldn't sell till they got down to $40. So you're right. It's 45.
The retail guys, they're not guys like you that have IPO access and
yeah, Yeah, hey, come on, let's not spread rumors. Anyway, so they couldn't really get out to here, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah. Right.
And so the IPO was what, $45, something like that?
Yeah, I think it was 39, 40.
So a lot of them, you're right, probably just held it and bought it and bought it, and here we are at $10.
Here I am trading on this platform. It's real. I'm gonna invest in it. And if you invest in something, you just kind of want to believe in it.
Well, it's not a big problem if they didn't have a lot. So if they paid cash for it, which is what I don't think IPOs you can margin. I know I've never been able to. Who knows in this day and world? Some of the stories I hear, and frankly, when I hear something on these days in a trading room or a Twitter, I used to believe, even people you think you can believe, I kind of listen to it, divide it in half, cut that in sevenths, and listen to 10% of that. So,
hey, whoever's been tracking what we said earlier, if you look at the futures, are still coming down out there.
We'll get back to that. Yep. So the other stock we'll look and we'll get back to the futures. Well, let's have a look at Apple, because Apple was the other big one after earnings reporting.
I didn't do so great. I got put in the popcorn.
So that was a bit of a popcorn machine.
Yeah, but I made money.
Yeah, it's just taking a bit because I got 15 things up plus 2 futures and stock platforms. I better log out of few stuff here in a minute. Hopefully it's coming through nice and clear. So here we are. So this is Apple. This is a 5. Let's go down short term. So you can see what Apple did. It hit the 3 trillion as we've talked about ad nauseum, and then it was there for a day and a half, if that, right? And it sold off. So and it was a pretty easy sell actually when we trade this one fairly actively. We came under that previous high, but you knew your herd mentality, you counted your waves and all that sort of stuff. Okay, here's a 5-minute chart. So let's see. This is today. And it trades very, very well. And this has got some of the really good market makers on it. So if you're from that genre, like I like it because it's kind of what I've traded against for a long time. So you kind of get what they're doing. But look how it traded. So here's the number, the release, whatever. So it sold off all day. This was... wasn't this like 165 yesterday? So it almost got up there today, it looks like, 164. Sold off steadily. And if you look off your grid, 48, 18. So in reality, after you want to really look in the real world, is after the market, right? So if you're a risk, you don't go into these unless it's a core holding with a position. People like us don't anyway. So anyway, it moves up. You were able to buy it on those numbers easily, right, Johnny? Because we were all able to do this trade. So they brought out their number, and then it came out with and it had its second run higher on the conference call from Cook there, right? But it actually trading very well technically. So even in aftermarket churn, the spreads were bigger than what I'm used to. The liquidity is still pretty good, right? But it was just the spreads widened. It wasn't as specific as a Microsoft, because Microsoft's double the price, so expect wider spreads. So here we are. Anything we want to add about Apple, guys? I know it was a really good record. They seem to be getting some of their supply situations in order. Anything else you want to comment, anyone?
I'm just excited to see how it's going to help the overall market.
Yeah, so the market gods, don't get upset at me if you're deeply religious. I don't mean it to be wrong. But the market gods giveth and taketh away. So we saw that in Tesla yesterday. Sorry, Elon, don't get upset. I know you think you're a god. But it fell like, 10%? And then it gave us back today. What will it do overnight, right? So we're going to look at, as Madavi said, those futures we were looking at on Nasdaq, right? So that's the mighty Russell. Where's our Nasdaq page? So here's the Russell. So look what we were saying. This is what our mate said here. He sold right at that open. It came down right to the Tenkan on the 5-minute, and it's getting a little bit of support. But let's look at what these aren't small moves. That's a 50 handles moves on Nasdaq, right? It's a pretty good move, right, guys? And it's trying to fill this gap. See how it gapped up? So remember what I was saying about the market makers, how they try to get their positions back? They've almost got it back, right? From that gap, assuming that they would have had some, a market maker can't always be flat. So basically, that's why that comes back. Okay. What? So we looked at all these, right?
The indicators, though, the futures market right now. If Bob, you said it was up.
Yeah, we're up. We gapped up.
So if we gap up. Would you expect something like this to trend up with it, or?
Well, initially that's what he was saying. He sold that gap right at the open. That gap up. Is that your question? I don't think you were here.
Well, no, after.
Oh, tomorrow.
Close. Yeah, for tonight, until 5 o'clock now.
Well, so if we look at what happened last night, and there's a few blokes. I mean, and I'll put his. I'll try and mate. Forgive me, I can't think of his name. Coming his first name, Costain. Very good ex futures trader. Trades for himself now. I'll think of it. But anyway, he has friends on the ground over there in Tokyo. And so what it appears happened yesterday, that big sell-off after, this looked like a continuation to me. I didn't see anything bloody big about it, but the Fin twit and all that gets all overexcited. So the word was that SoftBank, who are a big player in the market, I know a lot of people hate them and go on about them, but they make a lot of money. They do take big bets, and unless you actually know what these blokes' positions are, it ain't what you think. These people want you to think, right, what they got. Yeah, right. So, because people trade against them. But either or, there was definitely margin calls went on. They were after the market. It was also a holiday the day before in Australia, because it could have been related to any of these banks. Anyway, SoftBank, basically they fell 10%, I want to say, maybe 12%, come back a bit. And that was a lot of that selling. What also happened, Evergrande came out, right? The property developers, they didn't like what they put to the creditors. Would you like it? Hey, we're going to give you 5 cents back on the dollar, or whatever it was. You know it wasn't much. So this stuff's all out there in a really thin market, okay? So just believe... don't look at second and third hand information and take it as gospel. Have your own common sense of what's going on. If you've been around enough, you'll have a good idea of it. So does that happen again? Do you think the market was volatile enough today to initiate more of that? I would say a lot of the Tesla, if there was stuff there, was probably done. So that kind of answer, it's whatever's out there, John, I think, as far as that goes. But markets do this. They always go to where the most pain is. So you saw that overnight. It got smashed, then it went up. They all get sated. It goes down, and your techs pick that up, your technicals.
What's funny is because I was getting messages all last night from different people about how the market was going to suffer severely today. And then this morning, it was great for a while until we had a little pullback, and then the end of the day, Apple came along and gave another opportunity. But it's just kind of... Yeah,
that's what it is. It's all opportunity. And just trade that and put your ego where it belongs, behind the door,
My wife's got that in her pocket.
This is recorded. Oh boy, Madavi, we might have to pick your body up tonight, mate.
Yeah. Guys, you won't listen to
it. But yes, so you don't really know, and so just expect the unexpected. Use your grids. Don't take anything for granted. We've been around a while, and we learn something new every day. And it's always expect the unexpected, So, so today let's move away from stocks. I did notice someone just sent me a message that orange juice futures had a big day today. I have never traded orange juice futures, and I'm not a big fan of
Murphy.
Of what's that drink? The screwdriver, right? Markets are screwy at the best of time. You don't need to be hammered on vodka. It won't help your situation. Anyway, so the big move today and the story of the day, and there's a really good article some of the contributors put on Traders Community, and I'll find that somewhere with these 72 pages we have open here. So I guess it's going to be this one. So... let's bring this up. So earlier today, so let's spend a bit of time on natural gas. Madavi's favourite thing to trade. Actually, he does trade coal. Is a really good ETF to trade. There is two. There's oil and coal. So today they had a much bigger draw than expected, right? And so this is all on Traders Community. So they drew 219 BCF. the expectation was 215, but it was actually really just came up 2 days ago because weather models changed 2 days ago. So that moved up. The stock started moving up. But what happened was this was also settlement, last day's settlement. So how natural gas works, you have a thing called basis week, where that final week is where all the physical positions are matched against, right? So what you know as natural gas, most of you, is Henry Hub, which we all know is a Sabine one. Sabine, just where on the border of Louisiana and Texas. Here we go. That's what I was trying to get to. So most traders are out there, but some will leave it for the last day for whatever reason. Maybe to match their physical, maybe their rules, cash. So often you trade there's just different instruments you can trade to take that value. Anyway, at the end of the day, a lot of, some people got caught short on it. And if you recall back to Madabi's favourite day in the energy markets where oil collapsed to under minus 40, that was pretty well because a bunch of guys got caught on it.
Oh, my Hall of Fame trade.
Yeah, that was your Hall of Fame. And okay, we'll give him 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes done. Similar thing happened the other way on natural gas, except this wasn't going -0. That was all to do, I think we all know what happened on the oil. Natural gas today, these guys had what we call, they got to buy the molecules. In other words, buy the physical natural gas. It's referred to as buying the molecules in natural gas parlay. Well, they were short it, and they obviously had some to buy. There was no one left to sell it, or the operators knew they had to buy, right? And they had no friends to the party. So here's what happened. We went up 45% from here to here in very short order. And that was actually the biggest one-day percentage move ever. Right, that's how big that was. Look at that. $2. It's last day. So the limits aren't in place. This is why even if you are able to trade this, you get an email every hour. Hey, you still in that? You still in that? Days before, because they don't want this. The broker could be on the hook for this if this guy blows up, right? So that's why. So go read that article. The only thing I want to show you here on the curve, Natty was up across the curve. You can see that every one, right? So this is March all the way through April. You saw that in December, the one selling today, it was up 45%. So across the curve, everything was up. With the weather and where it's being shipped, you can see that, okay? So we're all at these high levels. So the settle is right here. So we're up 30 cents in March, and that means people are short natural gas, right? Production's down, and it's bloody cold. It's cold everywhere. We won't get onto our little ESG speech, but
it's hot here, mate.
Oh, it is?
Oh yeah, I got the AC on.
Yeah,
okay. It's hot where you are. So yeah, it's pretty warm in Houston too. But in a north bit of America, I mean, we don't really care about them, really, do we? But anyway, it's freezing cold up there. Canada, Europe. So these things will infect inflation, right?
I mean, Canada's got tons of oil, don't they?
No, well, this is natural gas. Well, as they've really mismanaged. This Trudeau's been a shocker for energy management, yeah.
Oh, Trudeau.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. And they got a real weird political situation.
His blackface costume. That was really good.
Good for Texas. We like it. Anyway, good for Australia. We like that too. But so look at these other things. This is the one I want to show you. So LNG for export terminals. Remember, Sabine, which is the Henry Hub, is where a lot of that LNG comes out of the States. It either comes out of there or another Texas place, Freeport. that is up 32% year to year, right, at 12.99 BCF. That was a record about a week ago, 10 days ago, the 16th, at 13.22. So that means that natural gas we're selling overseas because of contracts. Because remember, you couldn't give this stuff away. Australia's in the same situation. These big countries that are the biggest natural gas producers, and the other one, Russia's in the same situation too. They're selling it to like Europe. So there's more to what meets the eye, as I've said many times, of the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. It's a massive wag the dog with energy plays. We could go on all about that.
Iran selling it to China.
Nothing. Yeah. Well, around China, that's a blip on the iceberg to Russia, US, and Australia. Your biggest by a mile. Qatar's your other big one. So what's happened is production has been cut by all this CSG. We all know that. Blah, blah, blah. There's not enough. Global warming hasn't quite kicked in yet. Everyone's freezing. So here we are. And you get moves like what just happened today that we said. So do yourself a favour. Read that article. As far as Apple, there's a report there. Apple's earnings. We all know about that. So here we are. Let's go back to... So that's what you need to know about Natty. As far as oil goes, we are the same thing. So this is more what Iran is affecting because they're shut out with the nuclear deal, as we know, but they are selling it to China. But that's really, again, not a major thing because, well, most people are keen to forget when they talk about politics. They're very much influenced by whatever their belief is, their parents or whatever.
They do sell to UAE, and UAE ships it out for them.
So, well, let me just say what I'm saying. We're talking about oil. Well, everyone forgets that China is a massive coal producer and a massive oil producer themselves, right? So, whoever's selling to China is getting 10 cents on the dollar. Not literally, but not far off it. So what's happening with oil, as far as WTI, and oil's all about the barrel, what quality it is, and who you can do. So you got WTI is what we're looking at right here. So we're at 7-year highs here, right? The equivalent quality, I mean, I'm brushstroking a little bit, is basically Libya has a similar quality to this, right? Really clean, thin oil. That's why for our Italian friends, it's a lot to do with colonial. They're obviously in Libya, so their refineries use Libya. So it's similar. Brent, we're also seeing is higher by a couple of bucks at the minute. Same kind, and that's a financial settlement basically, because you know those familiar with it. Bottom line is oil production, coal production, natural gas production are all much lower for environmental reasons, but you got to have something to replace them before you do it, right? We all know that. And economies are starting to melt up. They're kind of probably hoping they don't, or Lord knows where these prices go, right? And because of all the political stuff going on with Iran, you got all those Iran barrels off. Yes, they're selling some to China, but so is a lot of other people, right? So, yeah, but it doesn't. It's a different type of oil to start with, right? But so anyway, bottom line is there's a squeeze on energy, the heating, the demand, and all that sort of stuff. And then coal is at obscene levels, like coal out of Newcastle's like ridiculous levels. So there's a squeeze on all this. And just imagine, think about this, punters and dribblers, if countries like Australia just said, you know what, bugger you, we're not going to worry about our own people. We're going to worry about the people sitting in an apartment in Paris, sitting in an apartment in New York that don't do anything that take government checks in one way or another. And we're not going to produce any of these things for the poorer people of the world that need this energy. It's all good. It's all got to happen at a right time level, right? So can you just imagine what these prices would be right now? Could you imagine? You know, so think about all that. And that's why you're seeing a big bid on a lot of these oil and gas companies. And also a lot of hedge funds can't buy them. A lot of mutual funds because of it's morally reprehensible, right? So but I'm sure there's shorts on it from that side as well. So all this is what's going on in the background. And you saw that in natural gas today. You've seen it in natural gas in the Dutch futures, the British futures for a while, and you've seen it in oil, right? Think of the good positive side. These good oil prices are also helping those that don't have the money in weak economies. In theory, unfortunately, they don't. Venezuela there shouldn't be any poverty there. They are the biggest thing in the world, right? There should be no poverty in Saudi Arabia. I mean, so in other words, the money doesn't get distributed in these countries. So who do you blame for that?
That's what Bitcoin is the answer, right?
Yeah, go ask Mr. El Salvador. Well, that's a good. Let's talk about crypto, because we got Johnny here and he's been itching.
No, actually, it does. I just had to throw that in.
Well, I want to say, because it's a good time to talk about it. Have a look what Bitcoin's done today, partners. Huh?
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a monster day, really. Look at that. So, stocks had a bit of a miserable day. This thing has been rallying for the last 3 hours, right? Before Apple did. So, maybe the El Salvador doubled down. I don't know. Did they have any more money there? So, El Salvador, which is that? Is that MS7? MS13? Oh, should I say that? Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't say that. Sorry.
Well,
forget what I can say anymore.
Gangs exist because people are poor. I don't know. So.
Gangs in New York, great flick. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. If you pull up the 3-day RSI, you'll actually see a pattern. It's
the 3-day RSI. So what do you mean by that?
So RSI.
I know that, but what do you mean by 3-day
so I'll show you.
RSI? We have your RSI on here, but what do you mean by 3 days? So there isn't a...
The last 3 days, if you
the last
retrace
3 days?
Yeah, and you look,
so
you'll see
a
pattern. Yeah.
Oh, this is going to take a while. I got too many things open here.
Okay, never mind.
Here it is. This is taking a little bit long. It's pretty quick. We got the quantum computer over in the Mateverse, mate. So here's what you want to look at. Yeah, it's got this nice bottom, a positive divergence. We looked at it the other day. Look what we got. This time we got positive divergence. Nope, no, we didn't.
So
we nearly got.
Well, it's bouncing up. It's
bouncing nicely. On the 5 minute, we saw it very nicely. This is an hourly, but so what we did was we hit our 50, right? Hit your we got the. Hit the moving average. Anyway, we got back into the cloud and we got over here, but down here's what you're liking, right? You want the cost through. So that
goes through.
Well.
It's going to go down to 35,000. I think it is.
So here's your channel. I got it back up here. If you want to look in Elliott terms, we're just correcting. It's just a series of corrections, which is very similar to the stock market. We're just seeing these pennants and then bang, bang, bang. I mean, it's just heavy selling. When it falls, it's like a, What did Ethereum do? Did you keep an eye on that today?
It's
a weekly. Let's make that a little bit 30 minutes or so. There you go. Almost identical pattern as you'd expect. It didn't get. It's kind of slowing down with the destruction there, isn't it?
They're both forming. I believe they're forming a
They're
base.
very similar.
So
a base?
Yeah. Well, if they go below this level, they're going to drop several $1,000s with Bitcoin. If or when. Or they're going to go up, and if it goes up.
I mean, I leave this one for the dribblers down at the local bar, Geez, why aren't you buying why are you on beer tonight? Anyway, sorry, I digress. So what I see on this on the daily is it had this bounce and it's rebalancing. Like we saw this on the Nasdaq, the same sort of pattern where it's right between the two of them. So the market's trying to rebalance. You can see it was also at night. This is the Ethereum, a nice sell off the Tankin. Now, I have never traded this, and the odds are I probably never will. So I can't tell you how this trades, you know what I mean? How accurate this is. Johnny hindsight obviously would have sold right here, but I really don't know. So I don't know if you give it a little, you know what I mean? But what we do know is it came up and retested that breakdown. So it is trading very clinically in that respect. It needs to get above this tanking to, you know, it's either got to come down to give it some sort of hope. Because this is pretty relentless. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3. So is this a fifth wave forming? I mean, in a perfect world, it comes down to 2 8s and holds, whatever that is, like 1/1850 or something. But as I said, I've never
did you take some helium? Is your breath? Can you hear his? Sounds kind of like he's on helium.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is performing. It is performing. You know, I'm almost thinking.
I thought he was doing it on purpose.
I thought it was too.
Well, it's just I have too much open, and I don't know what the bloody shot.
So the ELF is making your voice sound like.
So yeah, so I think we have a lot of charts open, so it is sounding different. So I think on that note, it's probably a good. So tomorrow's Friday. We have earnings out of Chevron, which is what I'm going to be watching. It's Phillips 66. We've had a lot of data out this week, so it's probably analysis paralysis for a lot of that. We will see how many of the same-day options are going to expire, or weekly options. Last week was the record. It's going to be nowhere near that. Keep an eye on order flow tonight, and as you spoke to earlier about what does it do tonight, right? So it's going to be more of that, I would suspect, margins and the like, right? So there we have, that's your FUBU. Why did I bring FUBU up, he says? I have no idea. So let's just have a look at the 5-minute SPOOs before we go out here. I think we covered everything pretty well. Lots of good advice on trading. We went through the hood and Apple. And you can see the same thing Madavi was saying. This wasn't quite the Nasdaq, but it opened up and it came down and filled the gap, actually, guys, on the S&P. See that? It wasn't anywhere the same gap. We're talking about, looks like a 5-handle gap. It got up to be up like 8 or something. Now we're back. We're actually down. So we obviously filled that gap if you're down. So just be very cognizant of these levels. And that's it. Anything? I'm sorry if the sound's distorted. If I do sound like I'm on helium, probably a good thing.
Well, with the Aussie accent and the helium.
Yeah, so I can see when we bring up those charts, we basically had way too many charts open for it to be easier, to the point of overkill. So anyway, everyone have a great end of the week. It's the last day of the week. Tomorrow you have a weekend. The main stories that I have seen going by, we did have GDP and everything out today. They were stronger than expected. But the main story, you're getting all this positioning going on with the Ukraine and Russia and that sort of stuff. I mean, maybe I'm too energy centric. I just think it's a lot to do with that more than anything else. And for people I know in that region, that tends to be what they're thinking. From not just, obviously people from the Ukraine. I actually have, feet on the ground on both sides of that. The Russian Ukrainians, for want of a better word, just believe it's all America. The Ukrainians believe it's all Russia. The people that I know up in Finland and Estonia, it's kind of more of the same, right? People in that I know in Europe, specifically in France and Britain. I think it's a lot of it's to do with redirecting to crises, which we don't read about here much in the US. But our boy Boris over there with the great haircut, they see that as a redirection from all the political fallout he's had there from a party he wasn't meant to have, didn't know about. And in France, Macron's redirecting from all the... And there's not much press here about this, but there's protests non-stop going on over in Europe, right, against the mandates and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of reasons to wag the dog. And in the US, obviously, you've got, what's the president's name here? Biden, Joe Biden. I mean, he's making Donald Trump look popular. He was the most unpopular, wasn't he? And now Biden is. So, and in his deputies, even more unpopular. So there's plenty of reasons. So whether you believe any of that, but these things do happen, right? The beated war drums sometimes it's just an attempt to galvanise a poor electorate, right? Do you disagree with that? So that's pretty well all from me. Anything else from you two blokes? We good? Well, everyone have a great evening. And we will see you tomorrow, or as they say in France, à demain. And what's your advice, Madame?
Always be killing it. G says the same.
G says the same. Okay, people. Sorry if we had too much going. I have no idea what it sounded like. But
selling off.
And yeah, there we go. We see that selling off pretty much. And you can see all we did there. Actually, well, what Madavi did was sell those futures gap up. You saw that. And the rationale. So hopefully that sort of thought helps you. One day, if it's not too crazy, we may do a live trading sort of thing during the day or something. But we'll have to work out how to have not so many platforms up. Because we're actually doing this on one of my main heavy ones. What was that, sorry, mate?
People who want to put it in the, I don't know, in the request line or...
Yeah, if people request that, let us know. We're not just going to do it for the sake of it. We are pretty busy. We don't get around on social media and that much during the day and stuff. But if there's a way where it benefits others and it doesn't, there's something out of it on a normal situation, we're doing that a little bit here, as you know. Just some of the stuff we're showing you how it sits up. But anyway, if there is an interest, hit us up on either Twitter, YouTube, or one of those means, any one of us. So make sure you like and subscribe, share it if you think it's useful. Everyone, we will see you later.
In the middle.
In the mate world, yeah. And Johnny is off.